put the pages back in order, as I've asked loads of questions on Senators' contributions, and I just want to try and keep the right order of things. So forgive me if I'm putting things together, but it's out of a genuine effort to try to respond to what you've said. So I do want to thank Senators who've made a contribution, and as I just said, I've taken the notes of the points, and I will try to respond specifically and directly to the points that you've raised. First of all, on Senator Casey, who's raised the issue of loan to value in the First Home Scheme. The First Home Scheme Special Purpose Vehicle, which is jointly funded by the state and participating mortgage lenders, offers equity to first-time purchasers. The maximum equity stake is 30% unless the purchaser is availing of Help to Buy, in which case, under the terms of the First Home Scheme, it's 20%. Under the Central Bank's macroprudential rules, equity funding isn't classified as a loan. So I note that the First Home Scheme and the Local Authority Affordable Purchase Schemes, they do operate differently. The First Home Scheme has already a built-in mechanism that allows it to work in tandem with Help to Buy by reducing the equity stake available to purchasers to 20% in cases where Help to Buy is claimed. In other words, the maximum one can receive under First Home or First Home and Help to Buy is 30%. And I know that's a matter that you've raised separately, and I know we've discussed that, and I'll provide you with a more detailed note on that, Senator, if that's okay. As I said, the schemes operate differently. The latter is a statutory scheme. The Affordable Purchase Scheme is a statutory scheme, whereas First Home is a joint venture with private sector mortgage lenders. The issue with the Local Authority Affordable Purchase Scheme is that it allows buyers to purchase houses at a discounted price, and in some cases buyers who avail of the Local Authority Affordable Purchase Scheme can receive equity finance as high as 40% of the original market value. So that leaves them ineligible for the Help to Buy due to the 70% loan to value ratio requirement. The Department of Finance will continue to monitor the scheme. I'm sure that we will have the opportunity to speak about it again. And as I said, I'll get you any more detailed information that I can help provide. If I could speak on the income tax, and I know that Senator Kine has welcomed in particular his support, and others have support for the support for the personal income tax package. As we know, on Budget Day, the Minister for Finance announced a personal income tax package to the value of €1.3 billion in 2024 and €1.5 billion in a full year. As incomes rise, it really is vital that adjustments are made to our personal tax system. This is essential for a competitiveness perspective. It's essential from a cost of living perspective. It's essential as people make decisions about returning to the workforce or not. It is essential, particularly in as tight a labour market as we face. Certainly I have constituents, particularly women who have raised families, who are making decisions about whether or not to return to the workforce. And some of those decisions are predicated on the marginal balance of whether of tax and how much they will be impacted by that. So there really are very broad and good reasons for continuing to look at the tax system and how it is vis-a-vis incomes. It is, as incomes rise, though, particularly important that adjustments are made to the personal tax system. In the absence of this, workers and pensioners would experience an increase in burden of tax in real terms, resulting in a drop of living standards. So it is a key cost of living measure, and I would highlight that to any person or any party who is choosing to vote against this bill and who comes into this House or other houses articulating a need for further and cost of living supports. This is a cost of living support. This particular budget tax package is built around three key pillars: changes to tax credits, the standard rate band and to USC, and the government has sought to use each of these levers to spread the benefit of the available package as effectively as possible. I wanted to make a particular point in relation to USC, which has been highlighted. We do have a highly progressive income tax system. It is one of the most progressive of EU or OECD countries. And of course, what that means is that the burden of taxation falls most heavily on those with a higher ability to pay, and that is the system that we want to continue. For example, it is estimated in 2024 the top 5% of income earners, those earning over 140,000, will pay almost half of the projected income tax and USC receipts, while the lower 80% of income earners, those earning less than €69,500, will pay only a fifth of the projected income tax and USC receipts. The position is that in Budget 2024, personal income tax changes were designed to ensure that the monetary gain was capped at €70,044 per annum. Anyone earning in excess of this amount does not receive any additional benefit from the personal tax package. Furthermore, the gain as a percentage of net income is actually greater, and more progressive for many taxpayers earning below this income level. So take Senator Gavin's example, for example, of an individual earning €35,000 per annum will see a 1.1% change in net income, whereas an individual earning €200,000 will see a much lower 0.8% of their net income change. So you can't just look at cash as the example, you have to look at percentages to show that it is proportionate. It is inaccurate and unfair, I think, to only look at tax measures as a response in this budget. You have to look at the entirety of this budget, as many senators have said. Senator Craughwell said it's important to look at the budget in the round and the suite of measures provided. The tax measures are part, the expenditure measures are a big part, and the one-off measures. For example, energy credits, increases to the social welfare payments, increase in rent tax credit, retention of the 9% VAT on gas and electricity, and the excise duty restoration postponed. Again, voting against this bill, strikes a blow against those cost of living measures in the round. On mortgage interest tax relief, I do thank Deputy Kine for his contribution and for Deputy Casey, who I know has raised it before. I assure senators that the government is acutely conscious of the impact of rising interest rates and mortgage costs on many taxpayers, and it's for that reason that the Minister introduced a temporary one-year targeted form of mortgage interest relief as part of Budget 2024. I should say that this measure is deliberately targeted so that we're not benefiting better off earners or people with much larger mortgages. There is a reason why it is capped at $500,000. It is to try to design to help those people who are most under pressure. Similarly, people with mortgages of less than €80,000 are likely, I say, to be less under pressure than those with more. So the government has attempted to target this as best it can, because we know that this measure typically and statistically benefits higher earners, and that is not, in fact, what we want to do. So again, I would urge senators to reflect on that in terms of their contributions for the future. On the film relief, excuse me. I also like to thank Senator Lombard for raising this, and I will look into the question of the geographic distribution more broadly point. I imagine that there are excellent films made in Cork South West and that it shouldn't be excluded necessarily. So I will look into that for him, and I thank him for raising it. I do thank senators more broadly for comments in relation to the increase in expenditure under the Section 481 tax credit. It's a change that has long been supported by the sector. And I think the increase is something that we should think about as we look at the continued development, and actually even more so the resilience of the creative film sector. We want Ireland to remain an attractive location for this sector. We want to produce high quality films. We want to be known for that. But we also want to develop a stream of talent that can work within Ireland in a predictable, secure way, which is already the case in most cases, but who can travel internationally and come back and develop a resilience in this sector. One of the things that we've managed to do very well is develop resilience in our economy by having pharma, medtech, financial services, technology, and the film sector is one that can add real resilience and reduce the single points of failure that if a downturn comes, not everybody is impacted by it. So I really would encourage, this is a sector where we can do well, and I think there is more that we can do on it. In relation to the residential premises rental income relief, in response to Senator McDowell, and I think Senator Gavin has also raised it, I note Senator McDowell's concerns in respect of tenant rights and the new refusal measure. I have to say that it's a policy matter for the Minister for Housing, which I know he will appreciate. So I perhaps mightn't step across Minister O'Brien in that respect. I would say, however, though, that landlords are an essential feature of the functioning housing market. Rising rents are driven by a shortage of supply. So stabilising and increasing the supply of rental properties is essential in trying to ease the upward pressure on rental prices, as is, of course, new supply, as is the cost rental scheme being developed by the Land Development Agency. But you cannot have a tenant without a landlord. Which is why the relief has been introduced. It is a very small relief, but some measure to try to encourage them to remain in the rental market and to provide certainty and stability for landlords. But it is such a small credit. I think what has been more damaging for landlords than the financial piece, because of course income is income and it requires to be taxed appropriately. I think what has been more damaging and what has helped have so many landlords leave is the dialogue around landlords in this state that Senator Gavin, your party, has contributed to in large part. We have had, since 2022, Between Q1 2023 and Q3 2023, we've had 15,000 notices of termination that were issued to tenants. And of those, 9,000 were because the landlord intends to sell the property. For the past year, notices of terminations were received. 14,500 were stated as the landlord selling the property. So 60% in general is because landlords are selling the property. Now, I hear in my constituency up and down that landlords have been demonised. Most landlords are owners of 1 and 2 properties. They have been demonised. They feel that they can't say publicly that they are a landlord. I don't understand how we have gotten in this state to a point where somebody who owns 1 or 2 properties and has been renting that for a very long period in many cases to a family, and then is demonised in that way, and why we have enabled people to leave the market to the extent that we have the rental crisis that we have. And it is very difficult to hear on the one hand that this is a crisis, and it is, of course, increasing homelessness, and in particular lone parent homelessness. So it is essential for the protection of lone parents and their children that we retain as many landlords as possible. And the dialogue and the terrorising, really, in language of landlords and their position in this state, I think has helped move landlords away from this and to sell properties. Not in all cases, but it is certainly something I think senators will have heard again and again and again. I really have to say, I have listened to Senator Gavin and I have listened to what he said in relation to housing, but you are actively opposing this tax break for landlords, but your rhetoric is actually a much bigger problem. You have suggested nothing that increases the supply of private tenancies, nothing whatsoever that increases the supply of private tenancies, which are an essential part of the housing system. There is nothing to increase the building of new homes, nothing for anybody who's looking to buy a home or have home ownership. In fact, many of the proposals that you not only oppose in this bill, but would do in your own budget, would make housing in this state less affordable and make home ownership less likely, not more likely. You're looking to abolish Help to Buy. I hope the 42,000 first-time buyers who have used Help to Buy will hear that loud and clear. You would abolish it for the future. You're going to double stamp duty. You're going to abolish the first home scheme that we've discussed here today, which has made more affordable to buy homes where the gap has been too great with an equity share. 600 people have been helped with it, 600 families, 600 home buying units, to the extent that we can use such a cold phrase, and 2,500 more approved. I hope every single one of those 3,100 households hear that your opposition to the scheme that's helping them get on their first, buy their first home, among other challenges to the housing system. So you can criticise all you like, but there is nothing. There is nothing. There is nothing.
It gets worse every year.
There is nothing that you do.
Homeless record.
There is nothing that you do to contribute to the building of a single private home, to the creation of a single private tenancy. You are public homes on public hand, but you talk to everybody as though you would solve their problems.
Minister.
You won't serve a single tenant's problem because you will push more and more landlords out. You won't serve a single person who wants to buy a home in this state. You will not create a private home. You will not create a private tenancy.
Lectures on housing,
so I will vote firmly for this piece of legislation and others for this very small tax credit. But really, really, the problem is how landlords have been demonised, and your party are in large part responsible for that.
Okay. Thank you, Minister.